We are ready now. So this morning, if you just signed in, I'm the Reverend Kent McCusick. My pronouns are he and him, and I'm so glad that you're with us this morning, whether you're in Fellowship Hall or joining us from home or someplace else in your community. This morning, we're sharing another growth experience with you. I'm not in Fellowship Hall, I'm downstairs in my office, and you're at home. And as we've learned over the last 2 years, 2+ years, when something unexpected happens, we can always find a way to be together. My special thanks to Bradley, who worked many hours on Friday and Saturday to determine why the tech board was not working, and then when it might be repaired, which the earliest time is Monday. So I'm in my office streaming into Fellowship Hall and your homes. I also want to thank Dan Haug and Sam Osey and Mary Richards for going with the flow. It does feel a little bit like a Wizard of Oz experience, except for one thing: the curtain has already been opened. I have one announcement to share this morning. There will be a landscape work party next Saturday, May 21st at 9 o'clock. Come one, come all. We need your help mulching and clearing up our gardens at the Fellowship. Dennis Woline has generously offered to haul mulch for us. He'll pull his trailer up next to the city's free mulch pile on the south side of 13th Street, across from River Valley Park, at 9 a.m. on Saturday, May 21st. The turnoff for the mulch is at the bottom of the hill just past the cemetery. Please join him there to help load mulch. Bring your shovels and pitchforks if you have them, but we have extras if you can't bring your own. Unloading and spreading mulch will follow in the lower lot of the Fellowship. If you're not a fan of mulching, stop by with gardening tools and help us in other ways, like cheering on the other workers. We'll see you there, and thanks for helping us make the Fellowship grounds more welcoming and more beautiful. It's always a fun event to work together. So welcome this morning to this service on radical self-love. Our board welcome this morning is by Mike Frankum.
Good morning and welcome. My name is Mike Frankum and I serve on your Fellowship Board of Directors. I want to thank you all for being here today and extend a special welcome to any visitors. If you're joining us from home, please stay on after the service for our virtual coffee hour. Or if you're here in the Fellowship Hall, we invite you to come back next week for coffee and fellowship before the service. Both are ways you can introduce yourself and join in conversation with kindred spirits. If you would like more information about the Fellowship, please sign our virtual guest book at uufames.org/guestbook. We have now entered the next chapter of reopening, where masks are no longer required, but instead are recommended, and where singing, food, and beverages are once again part of Fellowship life. We're still actively seeking volunteers for making coffee and providing treats on Sunday mornings. So if you're able, please reach out to the office to volunteer. If you're not feeling well, we still encourage you to join us from home. But otherwise, we look forward to seeing your faces here at the Fellowship, and of course on Zoom too, as you prefer. So on behalf of this caring, nurturing congregation, I welcome each and every one of you to this sacred space. Here we invite you into an experience of transformation, hope, renewal, and connections, which may inspire you to understand life in new ways. Thank you for joining us today.
Each week, we begin our service with the ringing of our chime 3 times. Once to wake the chime, once to open our minds, and once to open our hearts.
In the world of the driven, let us be drawn in. Let your love be a given, let us be drawn in. To imagine, to dream, to create, to redeem, for the sake of the living, let us be drawn in.
This morning, our chalice lighting is sung as Dan lights the chalice in Fellowship Hall, and a chalice will be lit virtually in this video. I encourage you to sing from your seats. The lyrics will be on the screen.
Rise up, O flame, by thy light glowing, show to us beauty, vision, and joy. Rise up, O flame, by thy light glowing, show to us beauty, vision, and joy.
This morning, I get to say words that I haven't been able to say in 2.5 years. For our opening song this morning, I invite you to rise in body and or spirit as we sing together a song in motion. We'll be singing Gathered Here, which will be led by the UU Society of Grafton and Upton, Massachusetts. Now, this is a song with motion, and their leader will teach you the motions, which I encourage you to do in Fellowship Hall and at home. If you're more comfortable in your seat, these motions can be done very easily and gently from the seated position. So I wish I could be up there to sing and move with you. This is Gathered Here.
And we invite you to dance with us for our hymn in motion, Gathered Here. These motions embody the spirit and the excitement of gathering together in community. You can dance these moves and these motions, or dance your own as the Spirit moves you. I will demonstrate for you slowly, but our hymn in motion is very up-tempo and it moves quickly. So move with it however you can. Gathered here in the mystery of the hour. Gathered here in one strong body. Gathered here in the struggle and the power. Spirit, draw near. I'll do it again. Gathered here in the mystery of the hour. Gathered here in one strong body. Gathered here in the struggle and the power. Spirit, draw near.
Gathered here in the mystery of the hour, gathered here in one strong body, gathered here in the struggle and the power, Spirit draw near, struggle and the power. Spirit, draw near. We are gathered here in the mystery of the hour, gathered here in one strong body, gathered here in the struggle and the power. Spirit, draw near. Spirit, draw near. Spirit, draw near.
Thank you for singing this morning. Our time for all ages today is The Big Orange Splot, written and illustrated by Daniel Manus Pinkwater.
The Big Orange Splot by Daniel Manus Pinkwater. Mr. Plumbian lived on a street where all the houses were the same. He liked it that way. So did everybody else on Mr. Plumbian's street. "This is a neat street," they would say. Then, one day, a seagull flew over Mr. Plumbian's house. He was carrying a can of bright orange paint, no one knows why. And he dropped the can, no one knows why, right over Mr. Plumbian's house. It made a big orange splot on Mr. Plumbian's house. "Oh, too bad," everybody said. "Mr. Plumbian will have to paint his house again." "I suppose I will," said Mr. Plumbian. But he didn't paint his house right away. He looked at the big orange splot for a long time. Then he went about his business. The neighbors got tired of seeing that big orange splot. Someone said, "Mr. Plumbian, we wish you'd get around to painting your house." "Okay," said Mr. Plumbian. He got some blue paint and some white paint, and that night he got busy. He painted at night because it was cooler. When the paint was gone, the roof was blue, the walls were white, and the big orange splot was still there. Then he got some more paint. He got red paint, yellow paint, green paint, and purple paint. In the morning, the other people on the street came out of their houses. Their houses were all the same. But Mr. Plumbian's house was like a rainbow. It was like a jungle. It was like an explosion. There was the big orange splot, and there were little orange splots. There were stripes. There were pictures of elephants and lions and pretty girls and steam shovels. The people said, "Plumbian has popped his cork, flipped his wig, blown his stack, and dropped his stopper." They went away muttering. That day, Mr. Plumbian bought carpenter's tools. That night he built a tower on top of his roof, and he painted a clock on the tower. The next day, the people said, "Plumbian has gushed his mush, lost his marbles, and slipped his hawser." They decided they would pretend not to notice. That very night, Mr. Plumbian got a truck full of green things. He planted palm trees, baobabs, thorn bushes, onions, and frangipani. In the morning, he bought a hammock and an alligator. When the other people came out of their houses, they saw Mr. Plumbian swinging in a hammock between two palm trees. They saw an alligator lying in the grass. Mr. Plumbian was drinking lemonade. "Plumbian has gone too far. This used to be a neat street. Plumbian, what have you done to your house?" the people shouted. "My house is me and I am it. My house is where I like to be and it looks like all my dreams," Mr. Plumbian said. The people went away. They asked the man who lived next door to Mr. Plumbian to go and have a talk with him. "Tell him that we all liked it here before he changed his house. Tell him that his house has to be the same as ours so we can have a neat street." The man went to see Mr. Plumbian that evening. They sat under the palm trees, drinking lemonade and talking all night long. Early the next morning, the man went out to get lumber and rope and nails and paint. When the people came out of their houses, they saw a red and yellow ship
next door to the house of Mr. Plumbian. "What have you done to your house?" they shouted at the man. "My house is me, and I am it. My house is where I like to be, and it looks like all my dreams," said the man who had always loved ships. "He's just like Plumbian," the people said. "He's got bees in his bonnet, bats in his belfry, and knots in his noodle." Then, one by one, they went to see Mr. Plumbian late at night. They would sit under the palm trees and drink lemonade and talk about their dreams. And whenever anybody visited Mr. Plumbian's house, the very next day, that person would set about changing his own house to fit his dreams. Whenever a stranger came to the street of Mr. Plumbian and his neighbors, the stranger would say, "This is not a neat street." Then all the people would say, "Our street is us, and we are it. Our street is where we like to be, and it looks like all our dreams."
Stickler. We think we get over things. We don't get over things. Or say, we get over the measles, but not a broken heart. We need to make that distinction. The things that become part of our experience never become less of our experience. How can I say it? The way to get over a life is to die. Short of that, you move with it, let the pain be pain, not in the hope that it will vanish, but in the faith that it will fit in, find its place in the shape of things, and be then not any less pain, but true to form. Because anything natural has an inherent shape that will flow towards it. For a life is as natural as a leaf. That's what we're looking for, not the end of a thing, but the shape of it. Wisdom is seeing the shape of your life without obliterating or getting over a single instant of it.
Be lads unto yourselves, be your confidence, hold to the truth within yourselves, as to the only Lamb.
The Community Academy continues as our offertory recipient through the month of May. Although they have made the very recent decision to set aside plans to open a micro school this fall, the Community Academy will continue to pursue its goal of providing innovative learning opportunities to a diverse group of children. The new plans are to offer the same types of nature and community-based educational experiences on a smaller scale, after school, weekends, and possibly during breaks. This will give many more families a chance to sample the value of a new approach to learning and creating relationships.
How can we best transform the lives of kids outside of their regular education? We're going to spend the summer of 2022 figuring that out. We're going to be hiring new staff, we're going to be developing programming, and we're going to be leasing a space at the ISU Research Park, talking to families, stakeholders, community members, and kids, and figuring out what are the needs of our community. And the Community Academy is not going to do this alone. Our goal is to expand on what our local organizations are already doing by working together. Thank you for being a helper. With your support, we can ensure that all students have access to an education that's more nature, more authentic, and more community.
All of the offering gifts that we've received for March, April, and May will be matched in full by UUFA members Larry and Sue Kerrison. Thank you all for your generosity in supporting the Community Academy, which if you'd like to make a financial gift, please go to the uufames.org website, the Giving tab, and you can make a donation online. If you're in Fellowship Hall this morning and would like to leave cash or a check, there's a basket on the table to the left of the door as you leave. Thank you again for your generosity. Each week, we take time in our service to share milestones from our lives, significant happenings that are bringing us joy, challenge, or gratitude. We do this in two parts. The first, the people in Fellowship Hall who would like to share a milestone are invited to move towards up to the microphone, floor mic, right beside the piano. Introduce yourself, briefly share your milestone, and Dan will light a candle for you. For those of you at home, I will let you know when we are ready to have you share milestones. This is our time of sharing.
I am Roger Berger, and I want to share with you a milestone in the life of one of our members, Barbara Evenson. Thank you for the people who prepared this program and showed her name to remind me that we will be attending the Ames Community Arts Council Awards ceremony this afternoon, where Barbara Evenson will be honored as a very significant contributor to the arts scene in Ames.
I'm Molly Helmers. Boy, this is tall. There are many of us here in Fellowship Hall and probably online who participated yesterday in the Day of Fun at the Y Camp for the Coming of Age program. So thank you to all of you who gave your Saturdays to do that. But why I'm up here is because I want to say that I am especially grateful for the support of this fellowship in just letting these kids be who they are. And I say that because one of the activities that they did was rock climbing and zip lining. And I know more than one of our kids said, my goal is just to get off the ladder, just to get to the rock wall and hold on to the rocks and then come back down. And that was an okay goal, and they did it. I think most of them did it. But it was nice to see these kids be able to take things at their own pace and not be made fun of for whatever they were doing. So it was a lovely day.
Hi, I'm Fritz Keinert, and Reverend McCusick is not the only one that's retiring this year. I'm retiring at the end of this semester. So basically, except for one little exam coming up, I'm done lecturing. Thank you.
If there are people from home or elsewhere around the country who would like to share a milestone this morning, please unmute yourself, share your milestone, and let us know when you're done, knowing that we might overlap, but we'll give each other lots of space. So this is a time of more sharing.
This is Ginny Molgard, and I'd like to light a candle for all the ways in which this service and many of our recent services have demonstrated a way of opening us up as a community to new experiences. Movement during music, a children's story that is about opening up and being more free. It seems like I'm writing a list of all the wonderful things that have happened in this service that show a new spirit of part of the 8th principle of being a wider, opener community than we have been. I'm done.
Are there any other milestones this morning?
Thank you. Yes, I'd like to recognize the fact that this nation passed a milestone this past week, having a million deaths from COVID. This is more than died in the Civil War, which was our largest number of people that died, 750,000. A million died from COVID. I don't know how to express this, but we have to get vaccinated. And the vaccination shows that it does reduce the number of deaths and it does reduce the number of sick. So please get vaccinated. That's it.
Hi, this is Ronnie Kahn, and I'm going to coattail on what Herb said. I had COVID in April, as some of you know, and I am so thankful that I had my vaccinations because I probably would not have survived. It was pretty bad. Since then, I've been having dizzy spells, and I was planning to come up there today, and I was just about to turn onto the highway, and things just started spinning. And on the one hand, I'm thankful that it happened then rather than when I was on the highway. On the other hand, I wonder how long this is going to go on, and if I'm going to have to give up driving. This is very scary for me. I'm done.
For those milestones that we have heard this morning, and for those that we carry in our hearts, whatever brought you here today, whatever you're carrying in your mind and your heart, whether it's a weight on your shoulders or a lightness in your spirit, know that no one ever needs to make this journey alone. This is a community of love. To hold your thoughts and wishes throughout the week, or to make a phone call when it's needed. This is a wonderful community we're a part of, and you are all loved. Let's be together in silence. Dan Haug will offer a second reading this morning, which is from The Body is Not an Apology by Sonia Renee Taylor.
I'm Dan Haug. This reading is The Body is Not an Apology by Sonia Renee Taylor. Marianne Williamson described the principle of natural intelligence. She posited, an acorn does not have to say, I intend to become an oak tree. Natural intelligence intends that every living thing become the highest form of itself and designs us accordingly. In a single sentence, all in me that felt nameless was named. We have a dictionary full of terms describing our interpretation of natural intelligence. We sometimes call it purpose, other times destiny. And although I agree with the spirit of these terms, I feel they fail to encapsulate the fullness of what Marianne Williamson's acorn example illustrates. Both purpose and destiny allude to a place that we might, with enough effort, someday arrive. We belabor ourselves with all the things that we must do to fulfill our purpose or live out our destiny. Contrary to purpose, natural intelligence does not require that we do anything to achieve it. Natural intelligence imbues us with all that we need at this exact moment to manifest the highest form of ourselves, and we don't have to figure out how to get it. We arrived on this planet with the source material already present. I am by no means implying that the work that you may have done up to this point has been useless. To the contrary, I applaud whatever labor you have undertaken that has gotten you this far. Survival is damn hard. Each of us has traveled a gauntlet of traumas, shames, and fears to be where we are today, wherever that is. Each day we wake to a planet full of social, political, and economic obstructions that siphon our energy and diminish our sense of self. Consequently, tapping into natural intelligence often feels impossible. Humans, unfortunately, make being human exceptionally hard to each other, but I assure you the work that we have done or will do is not about acquiring some way of being that we currently lack. The work is to crumble the barriers of injustice and shame leveled against us so that we might access what we have always been, because we will, if unobstructed, inevitably grow into that purpose for which we were created, our own unique version of that oak tree. I have my own name for natural intelligence. I call it radical self-love.
Our special music is performed and written by Leah Morris and the fifth graders at the Syracuse Academy of Science and Citizenship. This is Dreams Alive.
Everyone has a song inside. Let your heart's music be your guide. Anything you do can change the world. Always keep your dreams alive. Everyone has a song inside. Everyone has a song inside. Let your heart's music be your guide. Let your heart's music be your guide. Anything you do can change the world. Anything you do can change the world. Always keep your dreams alive. Always keep your dreams alive. Everyone has a song inside. Everyone has a song inside. Let your heart's music be your guide. Let your heart's music be your guide. Anything you do can change the world. Anything you do can change the world. Always keep your dreams alive. Always keep your dreams alive.
The service today is called Nurturing Radical Self-Love, and it highlights and introduces you to Sonia Renee Taylor, who is a Black queer activist, author, slam poet, spiritual and transformational leader. The body is not an apology. Yet for many people, being sorry is a lesson in our DNA, the trauma and resilience of our ancestors passed on to us molecularly. We have collectively been taught that there is a right way to have a body, and our apologies reflect our indoctrination into that belief. This may not be true for everyone, but many of us have spent a lifetime learning that we don't need to constantly apologize for who we are. For example, from various stages in my life, I am sorry that I'm fat. I am sorry that I can't move faster. I'm sorry that I walk different in a way that makes my hips sway in a way that you see as me being feminine. I'm sorry that sometimes I can't think clearly. I'm sorry I sometimes prefer cooking, sewing, and music to building birdhouses and going hunting. I'm sorry that I don't fit in. In what ways have you been asked to apologize for your body? What are you ready to stop apologizing for? It's a real sense of growth and freedom when we accept ourselves and move in the world without apology for our bodies. Sonia Renee Taylor believes that systems of oppression live inside us. And it is only through living into radical self-love that we heal. To live into loving our bodies, rather than continuing a potentially lifelong practice of apologizing for our bodies. To reject and dismantle the hierarchy of a shaming culture that insists that we must be other than we are inside of our bodies and outside of our bodies. When she talks about the body and radical self-love, she is not just talking about weight. She's talking about the whole expression of our bodies, race, age, physical ability, gender identity, gender expression, scars, hair, skin color, tone, mental health, and the fullness and so many other expressions of our bodies that remain unnamed. Even if oppression isn't about the body, all oppression happens on the body. Sonia Renee Taylor preaches, even though she's not a minister, she is a minister. She preaches that radical self-love starts with the individual, extends to the family, community, and organization, and ultimately transforms society. She says this: radical self-love builds a foundation strong enough to carry the enormous power of our highest calling, while also connecting us to the potential power of all bodies. If radical self-love is an oak tree, it is an essential part of the entire ecosystem. When it grows stronger, the entire system does as well. I'm going to bring Sonia Renee Taylor into our rooms this morning and share a TED Talk that she spoke, which relates to radical self-love and the body not being an apology, in discussing bodies as resistance, claiming the political act of being oneself. And at the end, you'll hear one of her slam poems, which is amazing.
Dear Black poet and activist Audre Lorde said, "Caring for myself is not self-indulgence, it is self-preservation, and that is an act of political warfare." So, welcome revolutionaries. Good evening. For many of us, we grew up believing that political activism meant a very specific thing, that it meant this, right? Or that it meant this. Or, in its most extreme cases, that it meant this. But what if I told you that political activism isn't actually a choice, that being political isn't a choice? What if I told you that political activism is this? Sikh model Haroon Carr unapologetically rocking a beard. What if I told you it's Stella Young doing a TED Talk on how she is not your inspiration porn? What if I told you that it was 50, 100 Black men graduating from college? The truth is, our bodies are political. The personal is political, whether we want it to be or not. So the really only question to be pondered is whether or not we will use our bodies to uphold systems of oppression or to defy them. The word body positive is quite a buzzword these days. Everybody's saying it, right? It's very cute. Normally, it conjures notions of spa days and rocking your favorite pink bikini, defying the sin of cellulite. And while body love is an amazing thing to aspire to, unto itself, it will not change the world. I hate to be the bearer of bad news, but your hot pink bikini and your new Italian Speedo are not disrupting any systems. However, there are ways to use our bodies as everyday acts of resistance. I call this work radical self-love. Radical self-love moves us beyond the flimsy notions of self-esteem or self-confidence. It moves us beyond the notions of individualism. Radical self-love is not independent, it is interdependent. It is about our relationship not only with our bodies, with the bodies of others. As we learn to make peace with our bodies and make peace with other people's bodies, we create an opening for creating a more just and equitable world. Every time you call truce with your body, you interrupt a system of violence and power that profits off of your self-hate. Every time you interrogate the beliefs and biases that you have about other bodies, you interrupt a system that profits off of the way that you feel about other bodies and the systems of comparison that we live in. Our relationship with our bodies is our access to a more just and equitable world. Our relationship with other people's bodies is how we bend the box towards justice. This slide is an amazing event that I wrote a poem about that I would like to share with you all. Bodies of Resistance. It is Monday afternoon, and Roberta watches her sons spout laughter from their geyser throats. Sun-choked and filled with joy when she brings them to the beach. All 6 members of her family are here, a sanctuary slightly out of reach, a raft against the constant lash of waves. But today, the undertow will be too savage for her to save them. Today, the ocean is a tyrant appointed to swallow them all. Until 80 complete strangers build their version of a wall in the Gulf of Mexico, singularly summoned to ferry Roberta's drowning family back to shore. Humans who instinctively know every wall needs at least one door. Today, 80 Samaritans became bodies of resistance. Today, 80 people rebelled against an apathetic ocean's insistence on a sacrifice. And this is life, y'all. In these bodies, breathless and beleaguered, we coax one another to survive. We are alive despite even our bones' dissent. The slack-jawed mutter that says these bodies were not meant for delight. Who are we to smile as the world spins in entropy, a hula hoop at our feet? What right have we to meet this day with anything but fear? We are safe right now, but out there wells the tiny bloom of child we hush from the inside. And I know he is, she is, they are, we are afraid, convinced we must beware and hide. But what are we if not survival personified? Because at this very shake of second, a queer kid stands unapologetically lucent in the lion's den of a middle school cafeteria. Just as a woman steels herself and takes a seat in the precinct, preparing to report the rape, defiant against the red tape that would sooner indict the length of her skirt, only to acquit the menace of toxic masculinity. As a fabulously fat woman on a plane explains to the man who has spent the last 40 minutes shaming her body in a series of tweets that she has no intentions on vacating her seat of dignity to make room for his hate. At the exact second, a trans woman turns the doorknob on a woman's restroom as a politician attempts to legislate her into invisibility. A college student with cerebral palsy and 7,000 signatures petitions for accessibility in the office of a university dean. Some days, the invocation of simply being seen in the body we have today is the chant, is the march, is the picket sign. There is no time in all of history when we have not resisted, even as they attempted to gavel our silence. Nevertheless, we persisted, each of us, a link in the human chain. Your shame has not slain even the lowliest of beasts, but our collective transformation has toppled entire empires, delivered us intrepid to capital city streets, 3 million grains of sand forged under the heat of oppression until we were fine as keen-edged glass, a buttress of bodies unafraid to ask why Black lives should not matter, as we saw no they in we. New solidarity was a word that must spring forever like water beside a standing rock. The clock of justice will not tarry while you question whether you are worthy of the fight. Despite all you've been told, resistance is an everyday act. The work of excavating every tiny artifact of the oppressor that lives in you. Your call to be a balm to every self-inflicted wound is the way movements are birthed. In a land glad to wish us endless slumber, waking unrepentant in our skin is a hero's journey, and the only way we collectively prevail. And only then can we say, in the words of the famous poet Lucille Clifton, won't you celebrate with me that every day something has tried to kill us and has failed and has failed and will fail.
When I chose The Body is Not an Apology last month for today's service, the leak of the Supreme Court potential decision on Roe v. Wade had not occurred. And I was not entirely sure how I would move the work of Sonia Renee Taylor into that arena. although I felt confident that we could. Here is her statement on Roe v. Wade, which was made just recently.
There are two things that I think make this important. The first is that this Roe v. Wade potential decision is by far, in my mind, an effort to reify white supremacist delusional power. What I really feel in my gut is actually moving here is white birth rates are down significantly, right? Which means, and have been ever decreasing. And while, abortion will remain accessible to cis white women with money, it will absolutely remain accessible to those folks who have money and resource, and they have private doctors, and they'll be fine. The purpose is to make working class white women have to reproduce in service of white supremacist delusion. That's the goal. The goal is to get white population rates back up and to force white working class women to birth on behalf of white supremacy, on behalf of codifying white supremacy through making new white babies. I really believe that. At least that's part of the equation, right? Nothing is absolute, but that certainly is, I assure you, part of the equation. And I point that out because, like I said, the people who are the people who are experiencing this decision will always disproportionately impact all the people who have always been disproportionately impacted. But what is also true is that the people who have been disproportionately impacted have always had the innovation, ingenuity, drive, fight, resilience, and resistance to figure ways around it. And now we have technology, we have far greater medical advances, we have, digital undergrounds. We have the ability to be ungovernable in this area. To be ungovernable in the area of this experience. We have the ability to do that. And I think that the most marginalized people will continue to do that, continue to be ungovernable around this. I want the working class white women to get into the way you're really being used. I want you to get into, the ploy, right? That right now you're being used, as breeders in a white race war. Like, literally. You are being used to reify the numbers white people need to maintain white supremacist delusion. Now, I would offer, that these people have all intentions on making life look exactly like The Handmaid's Tale. Absolutely. Absolutely. And so if ever there were a time to get intersectional, right, about your perspective, right, that this brief amount of privilege that you thought whiteness was going to give you, white folks, white patriarchal violence capitalist violence will absolutely strip you of immediately when it needs to return to subjugation and power. And right now, you've been drafted, and you didn't even know you were drafted. You've been drafted to do the biological labor on behalf of white supremacist delusion. So we are closer and closer and closer to a time where you're going to have to pick which side you are on, friend, which side you are on. And I hope that you'll pick freedom's side, because it's the only alternative that doesn't land us in some sort of, dystopian hellscape, which we're already dancing in anyhow. So I just wanted to say that. I want to say that I don't feel hopeless in any way, shape, or form. There is no liberty, there is no liberation that I ever thought the U.S. government was going to give me. There is the liberation that I create in community and in solidarity with my comrades and with other, folks visioning, visioning a liberatory imagination that is different than what this is. And that those communities are being created every moment, and that we will take care of each other, because we always have. And the truth is, now we're going to take care of each other, and we got greater access, greater medical advances, greater technology, and greater resource in many, many ways as a collective. So no, individually we would suffer and we would struggle, but we are not in an individual battle. We're in an interdependent battle. We're in an interdependent moment where it's going to take all of us in relationship with one another to move through this. But I believe we can. And if anything, I hope that this is a moment where people continue to divest from the notion that liberation is going to be handed to you through the U.S. government. Liberation is going to be co-created in community with other people inside of a liberatory imagination. And if we can be there, then I believe we will win. All right.
Liberation as an act of community. And in doing that, I invite you to rise in body and our spirit to sing together when our heart is in a holy place. Sing loud, sing clear. Let's co-create. Let's be together in community for liberation.
When our heart is in a holy place, when our heart is in a holy place, we are blessed with love and amazing grace. When our heart is in a holy place, when we trust the wisdom in each of us, every color, every creed and kind, and we see our faces in each other's eyes, when our heart is in a holy place, when our heart is in a holy place, when our heart is in a holy place, we are blessed with love and amazing grace. When our heart is in a holy place, when we tell our story from deep inside, and we listen with a loving mind, and we hear our voices in each other's words, then our heart is in a holy place. When our heart is in a holy place, when our heart is in a holy place, we are blessed with love and amazing grace. When our heart is in a holy place, when we share the silence of sacred space, and the God of our hearts stirs within, and we shield the power of each other's faith, then our heart is in a holy place, then our heart is in a holy place, then our heart is in a holy place.
As we extinguish the chalice this morning, I offer the closing words today, a statement that Sonia Renee Taylor identifies as non-controversial. Why the body? You, my dear, have a body. And should you desire to remain on this spinning rock hurtling through space, you'll need a body to do it. Everything else we think we know is up for debate. Are we spiritual beings? Depends on who you ask. Do humans have souls? We've been fighting about that since Aristotle. But bodies? Yep, we got those. And given this widely agreed upon reality, it seems to me if there ever were a place where the practice of radical love could be a transformational force, the body ought to be that location. A radical self-love world is a world free from the systems of oppression that make it difficult and sometimes deadly to live in our bodies. A radical self-love world is a world that works for every body. Every body. May it be so. Thank you for being with us this morning, and thank you for your generosity as you remember to give your offertory recipient for the Community Academy or for other initiatives important to the life of this fellowship, Black Lives Matter and our partner church. Thank you again for your generosity. I wish you a wonderful rest of your Sunday and a great week. Thanks again for being here.